Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the lefts, we go up to the rights, we go up to the middle of independence, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, July 16, 2025, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, on How the Frack We Got Here. Like we said, we do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we are a news podcast, which means we do pride ourselves on citing from the most reputable sources with award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, The Blaze, wherever extreme left or extreme right you get your views from. We simply don't do that. We provide you with just the facts. At the same time, we do try to watch our language, but words do fly. At the same time, guys, we do show videos that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. Well, as the title suggests, and much like a popular song, except, instead of Bruno, it's Epstein. We don't talk about Epstein, apparently, is the choice of words for the Trump administration. Why? Well, because they're trying to backpedal from another promise. Why are we freaking surprised?
Daughter-in-law said that there should be transparency in the Epstein case. Do you agree with her, sir?
The Attorney General's handled that very well. She's really done a very good job. And I think that when you look at it, you'll understand that. I would like to see that also. But I think the Attorney General, the credibility is very important. And you want credible evidence for something like that. And I think the Attorney General handled it very well.
The Attorney General briefed you on the DOJ and FBI review, the findings of that review. The Attorney General briefed you on that.
What?
On the DOJ and FBI review.
On what subject?
Epstein, of the review of the files. Attorney General Campani briefed you on that.
Very quick briefing.
Did she tell you, what did she tell you about the review? And specifically, did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the file?
She's given us just a very quick briefing, and in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen. And I would say that, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama, they were made up by the Biden, and we went through years of that with the Russia hoax, with all of the different things that we had to go through. We've gone through years of it, but she's handled it very well, and it's going to be up to her. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release. Yes.
It never ceased to amaze me, folks, how Taco it must be wonderful in his mind. It must be like a permanent Etch-a-Sketch to where accountability shows up and start over. And he dodges accountability like half of the Jersey Shore. It amazes me so that he tried to say, no, I didn't do anything. She's doing a wonderful job. Yeah, she's doing such an amazing job to where literally and figuratively she has wonderful sound bites like this.
I don't think he realizes how much she's humiliated the administration. This is a self-inflicted wound. She caused it. Again, I have nothing against Pam Bondi, but if you want to look for the villain in this story, we have found her.
If you want the full release of documents, the special prosecutor gets it. And here's why. Epstein is a key that picks the lock on so many things, not just individuals, but also institutions, intelligence institutions, foreign governments, and who is working with him on our intelligence apparatus and in our government.
That was the conversation at a...
And that was, I like to call Red MAGA USA, Turning Point USA, which is basically a conservative conference, into which the who's who of the grifters of the would-be napkin / Uncle Tom Sambos usually show up, peddle their wares, spew their usual rhetoric to make sure people still watch them and they still get their endorsements. Pam Bondi, which going back to Taco, he tried to sit there and say, well, we had to endure a lot because the Epstein files aren't really real. they were made up by the Clintons and the Obamas and the David Axelrods and the Madonnas and the Marilyn Mansons. It is amazing to me that for a guy who literally is an idiot will always go back to the classics. When pressured, will always go back to the classics. Even more so that at the time of the Epstein files, which again, we already knew because there were pictures of Taco with women in questionable situations with Jeffrey Epstein. And we know there was a client list. And I don't mean to go into tinfoil hat territory. I really don't. But we know there was a list. Pam Bondi had admitted it. It's on my desk. I will look at it. We're going to make some inquiries. I'll bet my paycheck right now that Taco's name, if he's not on the top 10, he's on that list somewhere. And he found out. And I guarantee Taco sat there and said, nope, dead it. Epstein hung himself. Epstein did this. There is no client list. There is no list. You're not imagining things. It's all a dream. Because that's what they're trying to do right now. Pam Bondi, outside of fighting for her political career as probably one of the most ineffective attorney generals in history, is literally and figuratively trying to calm the storm. And unfortunately, it's not working out well, despite Taco speaking up for her and also closeted serial killer, at least I think so, Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is trying to do the same thing.
Tonight, the MAGA movement's push for public disclosure of the Justice Department's files on notorious sex offender Jeffrey Epstein now includes a high-profile Trump ally.
I'm for transparency.
House Speaker Mike Johnson.
It's a very delicate subject, but we should put everything out there and let the people decide it.
A push for damage control from the president's own daughter-in-law, Lara Trump.
I do think that there needs to be more transparency on this, and I think that will happen.
Earlier today, Attorney General Pam Bondi tried to deflect Epstein questions.
Nothing about Epstein. I'm not going to talk about Epstein.
Reporters pressed her on new comments today from President Trump, suggesting Bondi consider opening some files.
She's handled it very well, and it's going to be up to her. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release.
The president said today you would release credible files related to Mr. Epstein. Are you prepared to do that, and when would you do it?
Our memo speaks for itself, and we'll get back to you on anything else.
That DOJ memo said it found no incriminating client list, no credible evidence of blackmail, and therefore no further disclosure. That stunned some Trump supporters because she had said this in February when asked about a client list.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Then her push to clarify.
My response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
The controversy lit a political wildfire in MAGA world.
Make some noise if you care about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal.
Asked about these new calls for action, senior officials point to the president's own words, where he says it's up to Bondi to decide. One official telling me, we'll see what happens. Tom?
Yes, we will see what happens, as in nothing. Because again, this is where, and I never thought I'd say this, that who knew it would take a person no longer living among us to finally split the cult, the Red Hat cult. Because yes, they ran this whole thing of, mind you, on this whole thing of well, if there's files, they should be released. We should know. We as the public should know. Did he really have these parties with underage girls to where the rich and powerful could really have their way? And it's amazing how it went from it's on my desk to let me clarify because I apparently do not have enough English vernacular to pronounce this. It's on my desk with other cases. That means you still have the list, honey. And you're doing exactly what you've been told to do. You have been told to bury it. And so you're burying it. and now you will be the quote-unquote fall guy for Taco. Because, again, Taco is probably on that list. And I hate to give the tinfoil hat community credit, but this is probably one bone that they should not let go of. Because, again, if there is a list, who else is on it? At the same time, if Taco is on it, we should know. More importantly, let's play lawyer for a second. If that list did exist, if there was a client list, if Taco was on it, would Pam Bondi do anything? Nope. She wouldn't. She's too much of a lapdog. She's not an attorney general, folks. She is a lapdog loyalist to Taco, which means that she's not going to do anything except whatever he wants. If he wanted people prosecuted, she'll try to find a way. She'll be completely unsuccessful at it, but she'll try to find a way. When he wants her to bury something, she'll bury it. At the same time, I'm sorry, I'm not expecting a lot out of this, but judging by the actions of what they're doing tells you a lot. And it's unfortunate. It's funny that MAGA, you red hat people are amazing to me now, because it's almost like you're waking up. Has the happy time juice wore off? The whole idea of you winning, let's make America great again, has that finally for a lot of you, has the delusion went out the window and reality is setting in that you might lose your Medicare and Medicaid benefits, you might lose your STAT benefits, your child's education will be cut in half. We'll get to that momentarily. The fact that your medical debt will be right back on your credit report, we'll get to that momentarily. The fact that everything that you enjoyed will now either be gone or harder for you to get, or you'll have to pay more to get. At the same time, you're being told all this from the same guy you defended in chat rooms, you defended in churches, you defended everywhere, wearing your red hat and displaying your flag and whatever Taco memorabilia pedal grifting thing that you bought, you now are regretting it. A lot of you are getting buyer's remorse, and I don't feel bad for you. Not as bad as those Latinos for Trump whose family members, people they know are getting deported. I don't feel bad for you either. You were just praising the guy months ago, and now you're finally starting to wake up. Just 6 months too late. But hey, you guys aren't the only one that have a problem with it. Deputy Director Dan Borgiano, whatever his name is, another conservative grifter, now Deputy Director of the FBI, says that he wants to quit his job because Pam Bondi won't do hers.
From Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino, who has threatened to quit over Attorney General Pam Bondi's handling of this matter, and that is according to a source who has spoken with Bongino. Bongino's anger at Bondi and skepticism of the DOJ's conclusions is being echoed by the president's loyal base. And it was on full display by some of the MAGA's most influential media personalities at a gathering of young conservatives this weekend in Florida.
How many of you are not satisfied with the results of the investigation? It looks like it's going to be, and now this is like who's going to be off the island first, right?
Do you think she really gets MAGA? I don't think so. She wouldn't have behaved this way if she did. And now it's a time for choosing. It's a time for choosing. We're about to lose Dan for sure, and maybe Cash too, if she doesn't go.
The fact that the U.S. government, the one that I voted for, refused to take my question seriously and instead said, case closed, shut up, conspiracy theorist, was too much for me. And I don't think the rest of us should be satisfied with that.
President Trump is tamping down on any.
So what's crazy about this is, guys, that literally and figuratively, they're turning. Now, all of a sudden, Turning Point USA, which used to be a love fest for Taco, is now turning. But notice they all want to go after Pam Bondi. No one is sitting there saying, oh, well, Taco should be held accountable. It is amazing to me that the Attorney General, who in my mind, which in my opinion is the most powerful position in Congress. Yes, the president, it would be a nice seat, but the attorney general has the ability to basically prosecute the president or anyone in office. That's the check and balance of it all. And Pam Bondi, if she did her job, would be prosecuting the president because, nobody is above the law, not even the president. But again, like I said, she's a loyalist. She's going to do whatever Taco tells her to do. And she will take the political fall for this. Now, will she resign? Probably not. Jeff Sessions didn't resign. William Barr didn't resign. And these guys, I'm not going to say did worse stuff. William Barr did bury the Mueller investigation. Jeff Sessions was literally just an ineffective attorney general. At the same time, I can almost put Merrick Garland in that same case because Merrick Garland had the ability to go after some people, but chose not to. So technically Merrick Garland did act on some things, but between Sessions and Bondi, it's a race to see who could be more loyal to Taco. But again, you MAGA hats that are now waking up and realizing you guys are just saying, oh crap, we might have made a mistake. And all I can say is, too late. Enjoy the freaking ride. But speaking of things that are too late, because guys, again, we did know that Taco wanted to eliminate the Department of Education, which he found out the hard way. You constitutionally cannot do that, especially for an education institution. You just simply can't remove it because you want to be a dictator. That being said, him and his Secretary of Education, who's pretty much unqualified, Lynn McMahon, are now moving forward thanks to a ruling from the Supreme Court that is not only gutting the Department of Education of its funding, it's also removing former employees. And I keep saying this. This is Conservative 101. If you can't remove it, remove funding, remove personnel, basically set it up to fail, only to blame the other side for the fire that you started.
One thing President Trump has been consistent on throughout his campaign and throughout this new administration is his desire to eliminate the Department of Education, just shutter it completely.
My administration will take all lawful steps to shut down the department. We're going to shut it down and shut it down as quickly as possible. It's doing us no good.
His directive to do so was challenged in court. Well, yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled the Trump administration can proceed with drastic reductions to the department's workforce. ABC's Arthur Jones II covers education. Arthur, what can you tell me about the ruling from this court?
It was a massive victory for President Donald Trump and Secretary McMahon, who are taking a victory lap after the Supreme Court ruled and decided that it could dramatically reduce the workforce of the U.S. Department of Education, which in turn will help them potentially eliminate and abolish the department, as President Trump has campaigned on and Secretary McMahon has said for months she has been selected to do.
What's the rationale, though, Arthur? Because I remember us talking about this. We were saying members of Congress were going, hey, the president can't just unilaterally disband a federal agency that we, Congress, established. Like, we passed a law. You don't just get to undo the law. Is the Supreme Court saying they're wrong?
There's actually two parts to this case, Brad. One is abolishing the department completely, and the other is to reduce the staff and the workforce at the agency. This decision decided on reducing the staff. Secretary McMahon now has the ability to shrink and downside the U.S. Department of Education, as she has set out to do for months now. The other part to that case is still being litigated.
Right. And we've actually seen a couple of these orders now in the last couple of weeks where the conservative majority did not actually articulate its rationale in the order. You did have here, though, Justice Sonia Sotomayor write on behalf of the dissenters strong language. She said, when the executive publicly announces its intent to break the law and then executes on that promise, it's the judiciary's duty to check that lawlessness, not expedite it. It sounds like she's basically saying, hey, we know he can't abolish the department, and yet you conservative justices are effectively letting him do it. You're letting him downsize the department regardless of whether we've ruled that's legal or not. So what does Linda McMahon, the secretary, start doing now? What do these layoffs look like?
This was hundreds of people, Brad, almost 1,400 people. And so far, the agency has been slashed nearly in half. It's a 4,000 person agency, now down to just over 2,000 individuals working at the U.S. Department of Education. And I've spoken to many of them, Brad, who are a part of this reduction in force, or RIF, who tell me that they were civil servants of the United States government. They got into this work to serve students and teachers. And now this decision, they say, is just heartbreaking for them.
Well, and lastly, Arthur, I mean, what are there changes that Americans, whether they're parents or students or college students, whatever, should people be ready for near-term changes if you don't have a Department of Education, or at least you don't have people working at the Department of Education in these numbers?
Well, like many in the education community, these education advocates and groups have been saying they believe that this could put millions of students at risk in the United States. One of the first orders of business, Brad, is the student loan portfolio, $1.6 trillion to over 40 million Americans. That can now be placed in the Department of Treasury. Secretary McMahon has said that she wants to move some of these statutory functions to other agencies. We're looking at students with disabilities. Their funding could go to the Department of Health and Human Services. Secretary McMahon is attempting to restructure and revamp this department so that it goes away.
And I am really all for the president's mission, which is to return education to the states. I believe, as he does, that the best education is closest to the child.
Her whole thing is putting herself out of a job, which President Trump picked her to do, quite frankly.
I told Linda, I hope you do a great job and put yourself out of a job. I want her to put herself out of a job.
And so now she has the authority to do that. Yesterday's decision gave Secretary McMahon the power to reduce the agency nearly completely, and we'll have to see what happens next.
Yeah, not the end of the story, but I mean, once you start laying people off, it takes years and years to reconstitute that, even if the Supreme Court was going to shock everyone and say,
yeah. And not to cut that off where it is, but yeah, that's what they're willing to do, because Taco and Linda McMahon, and of course, again, another loyalist carrying out her orders, because Taco doesn't like the Department of Education because he swears up and down they are all trying to basically program your children. Remember a long time ago that Taco wanted to take out, I know it feels like so long ago, but really it was only just a couple of weeks. Taco wanted MPT/PBS NPR to be defunded because he swore up and down Sesame Street was programming children. He did. He wanted Sesame Street. Sesame Street was just the figurehead of PBS. But he also wanted NPR to go because NPR was doing actual journalism. And they basically reported things that Taco didn't like. So Taco, being the man-child that he is, screams from high heaven from True Social, oh, these are for indoctrinating kids. They're trying to, make kids this and that, and Sesame Street is just the worst of them. I'm like, sir, we don't tolerate Sesame Street slander. Elmo's account may have been hacked, but what he said about you, I think a lot of people can agree with. I'm gonna leave it at that because I can't say it on this show. But they are trying to remove education. Why? Because George Carlin, one of my favorite comedians, said it best. They don't want critical thinking individuals. They want workers. And if you ever notice, for what conservatives push for, they push for low level, low income, high scaling meaning massive employment, but low wages of workers, because businesses support them. This is the reason why, again, in my home state of Tennessee, why businesses love Tennessee, because Tennessee will give them all the tax credits. They will literally give them the golden road to come to Tennessee. Oh, you'll get tax cuts. You'll get this. You'll get city funding. You'll get all of this on a plate. Just come to the state and say that you're going to give us a bunch of jobs. I mean, It was true in some cases. The Volkswagen factory in Chattanooga being one of them. It was at one point IKEA. IKEA was going to come here. That fell through. Amazon definitely took advantage as they set up multiple distribution hubs in Tennessee. And I can keep going on. Sports teams, I mean, again, golden roads. But conservatives only love workers and the fact that those businesses donate to their campaigns. But you also notice that conservatives don't push for higher wages. Say what you want about Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley, that little chicken shit. He did one memo for pushing the minimum wage, and it went crickets. And I thought it was a cold day somewhere that a Republican conservative wanted to raise the minimum wage in 2025. I thought that was the end of the times right there. But education, they want education to be for a chosen few. They want, as you can tell, college is already getting there. College is already getting there because, again, he wants to go after the Pell Grants. He wants to go after FAFSA. He wants to go after all open areas of funding. Thank goodness he can't go after grants, because if he can go after that, that'd be a whole nother situation. But he wants to make education, higher education, harder to get. He also believes that education should go to the states. That is not a good idea. The reason being is because the red states are not as equipped to handle this function as the blue states are. I'm just being honest. That's why I sit there and say a lot of the times, if in another world, if he was able to get away with dismantling the Department of Public Education, blue states that have a more democratic area would more than likely be fine. It's the red states, the ones that have the highest amounts of welfare, highest amounts of food and SNAP benefits, highest amounts of Medicare and Medicaid benefits. All four of those things I just mentioned, Taco is willing to take out in his big, beautiful bill, which goes into effect next year, right after the midterms, honestly. But what a lot of people don't understand is you voted against your own interest, and now those chickens are coming home to roost. At the same time, the children will suffer because, again, public funding, no matter where you go for public schools, is constantly being slashed because the Department of Education's budget is constantly being slashed. And now that you have a hitman in the position of Secretary of Education, it's only a matter of time before conservatives do what they always do. Will run and starve an institution to death and then blame the institution for starving itself to death and then try to privatize it. Tale as old as time. But moving forward, guys, apparently Taco is not happy with his boyfriend Putin and sat there and said, if you do not change your ways in 50 days, we're going to issue sanctions. Because the war with Ukraine and Ukraine and Russia is still going on, and Taco, he can't stand, I hate to see when couples fight.
Trump threatening to impose 100% secondary tariffs on Russia if it doesn't reach a peace deal with Ukraine in 50 days. The president making that announcement alongside NATO Secretary General at the White House earlier today, expressing his growing frustration with Russian President Vladimir Putin amid Moscow's ongoing attacks on Ukraine. Here's a little bit of what the president had to say.
One of the reasons that you're here today is to hear that we are very unhappy, I am, with Russia. But we'll discuss that maybe a different day. But we're very, very unhappy with them, and we're going to be doing very severe tariffs if we don't have a deal in 50 days. Tariffs at about 100%. You'd call them secondary tariffs. You know what that means.
Well, President Trump also announcing an arms deal with NATO, where European.
So, yeah, it's just amazing when you hear Taco try to say, I am very disappointed. It's almost like that's got to be an awkward ass dinner conversation. So Putin, you're going to have to lay off on Ukraine. I will do not such thing. You will sit there and eat your porridge. I don't know why I went there, but you can only imagine the conversation is what I'm getting at. Anyway, Trump literally is trying to sit there and try to make it seem like, oh, well, if Putin doesn't come to the table in 50 days, it'll be more sanctions. Russia's looking at him like, yeah, you'll change your mind. Because we know what Taco does. Trump always chickens out. Taco, I'm surprised Putin doesn't have a Trump taco as advertisement in Russia. Probably does, for all we know. But again, empty threat. We know that. But also, we do know about the flooding that did happen. We covered the flooding that happened in Texas. And, climate change is real for all those that deny it. And the fact that, we should have better warning systems, mind you. Well, Governor Greg Abbott is sitting next to Taco. And let's be honest, I'll just play it.
CBS News Texas, several families we've heard from are obviously upset because they say that those warnings, those alerts didn't go out in time, and they also say that people could have been saved. What do you say to those families?
Well, I think everyone did an incredible job under the circumstances. This was, I guess Christie said, a 1 in 500, 1 in 1,000 years. And I just have admiration for the job that everybody did. There was just admiration. Only a bad person would ask a question like that, to be honest with you. I don't know who you are, but only a very evil person would ask a question like that. I think this has been heroism. This has been incredible, really, the job you've all done. It's easy to sit back and say, oh, what could have happened here or there, Maybe we could have done something differently. This was a thing that has never happened before. And nobody's ever seen anything. I've never seen anything like this. I've gone to some real bad ones. I've never seen anything like this. So I admire you, and I consider you heroes and heroine, and I think you've done an amazing.
Oh, good Lord! The word salad doesn't stop. There's nothing anybody could have done. You didn't have to gut FEMA. You didn't have to gut the NOAA. You didn't have to try to gut the National Weather Service. You basically didn't have to gut anything. You could have left it all alone. But because your dumbass didn't leave it alone, that's why the FEMA response has been slow. Your ICE Barbie, Christine Noem, Department of Homeland Security, is literally an airhead that does not know what she's doing except blowing her budget four times over. And then you're going to sit there and say, well, you got to be a pretty bad person to ask that question right now. No, that is a question that should be asked because the response to the Texas flooding has been terrible. You don't believe me? Ask the residents that are experiencing it. Ask the parents that have lost their children in the flooding. I think they have a different response to Taco and his administration, how they reacted to this. Because the simple fact of the matter is, you gutted essential programs that people are now needing. Even Governor Greg Abbott, who turned around to them and said, oh, we don't need FEMA, and yet was requesting FEMA assistance? Hypocrite much? So it amazes me that Taco not only just avoids it all, avoids accountability, but always will say, you asked me that, you're such a bad person. You shouldn't ask that question. In the scolding. So sometimes, this is why I know I couldn't be a journalist. Because if I'm asking Taco a question, oh, well, you must be a bad person. No, I'm a very fine person. I'm not the one that's basically an accused sexual predator. I'm not the one that's a 43 count felon. I would hit him with truth. Now that might be my first and last time asking that idiot questions, but at the same time, he's gonna know what I said and what I didn't say. I'm just saying. But it amazes me so that the lack of accountability on this man is beyond high audacities. It really is. But at the same time, it goes back to if you have the backing of somebody, especially in the sense of audacity, then I can understand why Taco says some things because he's got backing. Much like the Supreme Court, which again, I keep on telling you guys the dangers of a Supreme Court, especially a conservative Supreme Court, conservative-leaning Supreme Court. Why? Because the Supreme Court, I cannot believe I'm saying this, has sat there and basically sided with parents to give them vetoing ability over aspects of a child's education that might compromise their religious beliefs. Let me say this again. A conservative-leaning Supreme Court has just ruled that parents will have the ability to veto certain aspects of a child's education in a public school. And we've talked about this. We really have. To where here's the problem that, again, this feels so long ago, but it was just last year. Parents were all like, I don't want my child learning CRT, which no child was. I don't want my child finding out that white people are horrendous people. Your history says otherwise. I don't want my child to understand that the South will rise again, but the Confederacy was just a rebellion to being taxed because we didn't want to pay our slaves equal wages because that was the real reason for the Civil War. You don't want to educate properly, because if you educate properly, you might not have that many conservative voters. At the same time, they don't want them. Again, parents were vetoing African American history, LGBTQ plus history, API and Pacific Islander history. It's amazing how people of color's history always seem to be a problem for some napkins out there, yet you don't want to tell the actual history of napkins throughout the U.S. during that time period and currently. It amazes me that they want to stop religion. Here's my thing. If you want to your child, and I'm stressing this oh so heavily, and I say this, hi, Will with How the Frack Got Here, July 16th, 2025. I am saying this for posterity. If you don't want your child to learn a public school curriculum to which they should learn every aspect of American history, the good, the bad, the ugly, to where we are not encouraging cultural sensitivity by learning African American culture, Asian and Pacific Islander, LGBTQ plus, and many others out there. If you have an issue with your child learning any of this, do us all a favor. Homeschool them. Take your child out of public education, homeschool. Become an educator. Then you have full control of what your child learns because you will be their educator. But don't go to a public institution complaining and saying my child does not need to learn this and then citing religious beliefs. Because in my opinion, there's wonderful private Christian schools that you can go, or Catholic schools, or whatever religious school you want to go, whatever tickles your fancy, send your child there. But for public school, there's a standard because it's a federal standard. And it doesn't hurt your child. It actually makes them a decent, critical thinking, culturally aware human being. Just say you don't want your child to learn that there were some atrocities that your ancestors did, and yet you are just wanting to bury history. Go homeschool. You'll do us all a big favor. Meanwhile, as Stephen Miller and the rest of the Gestapo ICE are still trying to round up immigrants, still claiming that they're illegal immigrants, that they're the bad apples among us, here's another thing that's going to make me worry about places like Alcatraz and and things like due process, because we just saw a ruling to where undocumented immigrants can no longer be bailed out. Again, undocumented immigrants will no longer have access to bail during an immigration/asylum hearing. I wish I could make this up.
In the U.S. illegally will no longer be eligible for a bond hearing. Under the new policy, migrants can be held in ICE detention indefinitely until their deportation hearings, which can take months or even years. Previously, they could request a bond hearing before an immigration judge. Now the Trump administration is eliminating that process of having to seek release on bond. ABC News Washington, D.C. Bureau Managing Editor.
So think about that. And again, this kind of goes back to the bond system. I hate the cash bond system because it's designed to basically keep poor people in, because again, nobody wants to go through a bond. no offense to the bail bondsman people out there. I'm sure there's a lot of you guys that have wonderful businesses and you guys are filling a need. So I'm not knocking you for the industry that you guys have. I'm knocking the cash bail system because number one, cash bail is just a promise that you'll show up and to bail you out of jail. But again, the U.S. is number one in one thing: the most people incarcerated in jail. And now, because we just talked about Taco and his Alligator Alcatraz facility being built in Florida, and now you are finding out that undocumented immigrants may no longer be eligible for bond hearings. That's just news and music to ICE's ears, because now whoever they round up won't be able to really get out. They're stuck there until their hearing. And keep in mind, this is the same group, the same administration that wants to remove due process. They want to basically put in a fast to ship line in out near that Alligator Alcatraz. Because keep in mind, Alligator Alcatraz is next to an airstrip. They want to deport people as fast as humanly possible without due process, and they've now been given 2 of the 3 green lights to do so. And it's inhumane. It's terrible. It's things of this nature that really shouldn't happen, and yet, it's happening. This is the reason why I sit there and say, look, if I see ICE, I will definitely say ICE is out there. ICE is out there in the field looking for folks. I'll warn people. They won't care. Because the simple fact of the matter is, this isn't rounding up. This is just internment camps 2.0. And at the same time, it needs to be acknowledged as such. Because here's the thing. This is what happens when you let Taco get in office. Because everybody remember the first time? Remember the ICE detention centers where the kids were separated from their parents, and you had hundreds, if not thousands, of kids wrapped up in aluminum foil in detention centers, separated from their parents. This is just a redux model of that. This is part 2. And at the same time, now they're going to be stuck in there indefinitely without bail because Stephen Meyer is basically a Nazi. And secretly, Taco loves them. But speaking of Taco, this is a quick one because Taco's plans have done nothing but kick up inflation. Back to almost pre-COVID levels. Who could have called it?
And U.S. inflation rose last month to the highest level since February. The new report shows inflation rose 2.7% over last year. ABC News business reporter Alexis Christoforous is here with more on that. Alexis, what stands out to you here?
That we're finally starting to see the Trump administration's tariffs seep into consumer prices in a whole array of areas. Not in a big way, but it's starting to happen. The inflation rate in May was 2.4%. We're now at 2.7%. So this is higher than both what we saw in April and in May. Remember, April is when Liberation Day was announced. And then since then, the tariffs have been on again, off again. We're just now starting to see this seep into different areas of the economy. Just to give you some ideas, rent continues to be a thorn in the side of Americans. Biggest rise there and the biggest cause for inflation rising as much as it did last month. We're also paying a bit more for groceries, eating out, furniture, and toys. Toy prices up 1.8% month over month. On the downside, meaning the good news out there for consumers is we were spending a whole lot less for airfares, down 3.5%. And also new and used cars and trucks, those prices have come down despite a lot of talk about tariffs pushing those prices higher.
All right. So what does this mean for the economy overall?
Well, I think we're still seeing a lot of companies have that pre-inventory stocked up. So they're not yet selling items that have been impacted by the tariffs, or if they are, they're absorbing a lot of those costs. So we're going to have to see how much longer they can continue to do that. Remember, the Federal Reserve has its meeting at the end of the month. A lot of folks are saying this report does not sway them. They will probably continue to take that wait and see attitude and not cut interest rates until they have a better feel for what these tariffs truly mean for the economy. I mean, just think about it. This week alone, President Trump announcing a slew of reciprocal tariffs. If they happen, what do they mean for prices? What do they mean for the economy?
All right, Alexis Christoforous.
What do they mean for the economy? Oh, they're not gonna slash them. Unfortunately, we are going to be stuck. We unfortunately are going to be stuck. And again, the Federal Reserve will not, and I mean will not, slash their rates. They will not, unfortunately. But Democrats, again, I keep bringing you guys up because you guys, I'm not saying right now, and I hate to say this is the perfect storm for you guys to get out, know your constituents, talk to them. Don't just wait till election year to actually get out to know your people. Now would be the perfect time to do so, because you do have to set the roadmap for next year's midterms. The goal would be that you guys overtake the House and the Senate by overwhelming majorities, because that means you have to do a lot of reversing of Taco's policies, especially since you would need overwhelming majorities in the House and the Senate to do so. That being said, what kills me, guys, about you Democrats is this kind of thing. What I mean by that is that whenever it comes to impeachment efforts, where you guys, again, shout out to Representative Al Green out of Texas. He did file an impeachment because, again, Taco deserved it. Still deserves to be impeached. Still deserves to be removed. But, of course, with the Republican overwhelming majority, he was not going to get that. That being said, however, it amazes me that Hakeem Jeffries, and I'm trying to be nice to this man, because, yes, he tried to filibuster before the big bill was passed. He tried to filibuster for 8 hours. Now, was it a symbolic gesture? I guess. I still think, I'm going to be honest with you, it was kind of a waste of time, because the reason why, Republicans knew they had the votes. Republicans knew that the reconciliation, as long as all of them voted together, then everything would be fine. That also being said, that Jeffries is now telling folks, the progressives in his group, hey, slow down with the impeachment votes. It's not going to happen. We just need to focus. Now, here's why I say the Democrats seem to get it wrong, that there is a bunch of moderates and centrist Democrats. I refer to them as the old guard. Now, about the old guard, they are pretty much Republican light. They are Republican light in so many ways. Because, again, it took 2 senators when Biden was president to stop his progressive agenda. He was pushing for reparations. He was pushing for a higher minimum wage. He was pushing for his bill that actually included building roads and bridges, creating new jobs, increasing amounts of funding for education, things of that nature. He was pushing for more progressiveness, and 2 senators decided that, nah, Kristen Sinema being one of them, and unfortunately, the other guy, who is thankfully not there anymore, but he's done the damage that he was there to do. It took 2 moderates. Even Biden, at one point, sat there and said, I don't want to wipe out student loan debt entirely. I still think that something needs to be paid, which, again, hard to do so when your minimum wage hasn't went above $7.29 in almost a decade plus. That being said, Democrats, you guys have the ability to finally do what you should have done and not wait till election year. Now, but you also have to let progressives lead. Progressives need to take over. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The old guard of Democrats needs to move along. Pelosi, Schumer, you guys need to move along. You guys who are lifelong seat holders, unfortunately, need to step down, and progressives need to stay over. I am talking the Ilhan Omar, the AOCs, the Jasmine Crockett's. I am talking about the true progressives that need to move forward, that need to step forward and lead the Democrats. Because yes, we do need more progressive voices, more than the old guard. But I will say this: the old guard needs to step down. And until that happens, there will always be a divide among the Democrats, and that's always the reason they're going to lose. Because say what you want about conservatives and the MAGA folks, when it comes down to the voting line, they all say yes. A little bit different, unfortunately, from the Democrats. But before we get to the guys, so we got a couple more news stories before we get to our feel good segment. RFK has decided that things need to change in the world of vaccines. Well, that being said, our worst fears about an anti-vaxxer has come to light about what he wants to do with vaccines with children and pregnant women.
HHS Secretary RFK Jr. saying, quote, "We believe the children deserve better." The lawsuit alleges changes to COVID vaccine recommendations without a scientific reason, and Kennedy's firing of vaccine advisors, replacing them with multiple vaccine skeptics, are illegal and are outside established scientific practice. Joining us now, the president of the American Academy of Pediatrics, Dr. Susan Kressley. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us. Please explain the reasoning of this lawsuit.
So first, this is not a step we took lightly. Vaccines remain one of the most effective tools we have to protect children's health. They're incredibly safe. That hasn't changed. We are here because there are deliberate efforts underway to distract from these facts, create unnecessary fear and anxiety, and mislead the public.
What do you understand is the basis for these decisions?
So from our perspective, actions really crossed a line when the action was taken to change recommendations for COVID-19 vaccines without the appropriate process, without looking at the data, and without expert review. And so while to us this is not just about COVID-19, it was that definitive action that made us compelled to act.
What is the normal process? For instance, the COVID-19 vaccine that got put into place, the mandates for it or the recommendations for it. What was the process to do that back in 2020 and 2021 when the vaccine was becoming available?
Well, what I can tell you is how the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices has been functioning for years, and it worked very well. There were 17 highly qualified experts that had gone through a rigorous process. They looked at all the data. They had robust, transparent conversations in the public purview where they could decide what was in the best interest of public health. What happened recently is that no longer took place. Those experts were sidelined. The science was sidelined and replaced by a party of 8 and then 7 people who had way less experience on the vaccines and the science behind how to interpret the data. And there was a decision made that was outside the normal process and without scientific basis.
So what's the precedent that you're arguing in front of, that you will be arguing in front of a judge to say that this is not just a bad decision, but a decision that should not be allowed?
So you have to ask the lawyers the legal case for that. I'm the pediatrician, but what I can tell you,
as I asked you that, I thought maybe that wasn't quite fair. Let me ask you this one. I'm curious about what the real risk is here. If the vaccine panel no longer recommends a vaccine, are children and parents still going to be able to access it?
Well, we don't quite frankly know because the recommendations are so woven into so many decisions. But we do know what we do know, and what we have been seeing is that when every time someone raises doubt, this impacts parents feeling confident in their decisions to vaccinate their children and causes anxiety that's unnecessary. It's not just about COVID-19 vaccine in our offices. It's about every vaccine that parents are questioning.
So what is the confidence level for vaccines right now out there? How has it already been affected?
I think 2 things are happening. People are asking more questions, both about how can I trust these vaccines? Are they safe? There are many more questions than we experienced years ago. But the other piece of this is that just as many parents and we have to remember that the vast majority of parents vaccinate their children in this country, they're worried their vaccines are going away. And so we are also fielding questions because there's uncertainty about the infrastructure of the vaccine delivery system and what will be available to protect children.
And just to be clear, vaccines safe?
Safe, effective, life-saving, and one of the best tools we have to protect children's health.
Dr. Kressley, thank you.
I don't know how many other ways we can say that. I don't. Vaccines work. Vaccines do not cause autism. Vaccines are relatively safe. They've actually helped us not have pandemics anymore like smallpox, measles, chickenpox, shingles. I can keep going on. But the fact that we don't have these polio, another one. The reason why we don't have these epidemics anymore is because of vaccines. In the same sense of the COVID-19, which I find it funny. Ever since those COVID-19 vaccines in place, you don't see a lot of people complaining about breathing anymore. Again, vaccines do work. The fact that RFK wants to remove the educated and put in the tinfoil hats should tell you everything you want to know. But at the same time, RFK is an anti-vaxxer. He does not believe in medicine, except the medicine that he believes actually makes sense. And I keep saying this all the time. Anti-vaxxers, stick to y'all. But don't try to educate us, because I'd rather listen to a doctor that's actually put in the time, has been credentialed, licensed, and insured by a medical board before I listen to somebody that decided to do their research on Google and then comes back and says, actually, if you take this route, you'll be fine. No. Unfortunately, RFK has decided to fire all the doctors and install all the herb lovers. And I'm not talking about the ones that, love the plant, because you people are cool. I'm talking about the ones that would rather eat dirt before they actually go to a hospital. Those guys are the ones I'm talking about. And RFK now has panels to where they can decide what is appropriate for a child. And that's dangerous. So take my advice. Whatever your doctor says to do, just do it. It's a lot easier that way. Plus, do you really want to depend on a guy that literally sounds like he needs a throat lozenge, herbal tea, and literally a humidifier? Because that voice, it almost sounds like an evil villain that just never caught his breath. That's what it sounds like to me. But again, it's RFK, not surprised. Next last story that we do got, guys, because again, this is how I know that conservatives love to keep us in debt. A judge has ruled, because keep in mind, one of Biden's crowning achievements was that to get medical debt off credit reports. Anybody that's ever had a credit report, if you had medical debt, those are a pain in the ass. Much like student loans, medical debt can actually go against your debt to income ratio and could affect your ability to be qualified for cars, for homes, for loans, even jobs, because jobs get credit reports too. And I hate to say that, but credit reports credit reports didn't actually exist before until before 1989. So I've always wondered, was credit a scam? But again, another conversation. But it was a great thing that Biden was able to finally get that through the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to actually get that removed. But now a judge is sitting there saying that because of two industry associates, or we want to call them lobbyists, had filed a lawsuit, and then Taco's administration had joined, and the judge has decided to rule against that ruling, to where now medical debt goes back on credit reports. Guys, I am going to say this the best way I can. Businesses love to keep people in debt. Here's the crazy part. Imagine if we had a society that was debt-free. We wouldn't have an industry that was built on debt. We would not have an industry of predatory lending. We would not have an industry to where folks are either going to be dodging their student loans or paying their student loans that never go away. And trust me, as a person that has a few, they don't. The principal still goes up, the interest still goes up, and you find yourself paying and paying and paying your life away, because again, it is amazing to me that banks will gladly give an 18-year-old $60,000, $40,000, $50,000 and up for an education, but won't give the same type of money to someone that wants to open up a business without, jumping through so many hoops. Because you know why? Predatory lending. I've created a new debtor. I've created a new person in debt. They will always have to owe me until they pay it off, win the lottery, one of the two. At the same time, I have guaranteed money still comes to me. Why do you think that now people, the whole idea of renting an apartment, because you don't own an apartment, or renting a home, you don't own it, you rent it. The owners make money off of it, but you rent all that money. And if you're like me, every month, I hate the first of the month. Not because everybody plays that wake up, it's the first of the month. That annoys me too. But what annoys me on the first of every month is that I have to pay an amount that doesn't go to anything, doesn't go to my credit report, doesn't go to ownership of the house, doesn't do anything, but just tells the person, thank you, I'll stay here another 30 plus days. That's all it does. And it infuriates me. Not only because of the fact that, renting just feels like a payday loan that doesn't end. At the same time, trying to go for a home these days is impossible. Why? Because you have hedge fund accounts and hedge fund investors and companies buying up property, buying people that have owned land for years, decades, generations, only to tear down those homes, tear down the land, and build an apartment complex with New York rent. Because I'll tell you right now, in Nashville, that's all you see. You might see a subdivision that has homes that are literally right next to each other, but then you see apartments, sky-high apartments getting built with New York rent. Why? Because those with higher salaries from other states, I'm not knocking you guys. You got a higher salary from New York or California or Michigan or any other state, because Tennessee pays poor. The average salary in Tennessee is somewhere between 45 to 55,000 a year, if you're lucky. But I can't knock those with higher salaries that come to Tennessee, because it is tax bracket friendly for those that are making above 100 grand. But those are renters. And again, what these companies love, they love to keep people in debt. They love to keep people as renters. They love to keep people to where money is never kept by them. Because they always talk about spending. They're never talking about saving. Because in this day and age, you cannot budget and save your way out of a poverty line to where everything has gone up but your income. And companies love it because, hey, a person in debt means you always will be paid, because they have to, because in order for them to get farther, they have to pay you. And that alone is predatory lending in a nutshell. And if you had medical debt, that was, medical debt that prevented you from, qualifying for these things. Unfortunately, we have to begin that fight again to show off the bat that, yes, that needs to be removed. Why? Because you are hindering a lot of Americans from trying to achieve something. Because again, that being on a credit report, and again, I can go into the whole thing about credit report being a scam, but the fact that you took something that Biden achieved and now we're doing this because your lobbyists want it shows how much Taco's administration is compromised, bought, and paid for. But the last thing I got, guys, is, again, you ever wondered why, it's hard to get a job these days? I mean, seriously, it's hard to get a job in this day and age. You would think so. Companies always say nobody wants to work. Well, I will say this: is your company using an AI recruiter? AI is a big thing now. It's being used in almost everything. And I have sat there and said on this podcast that with AI will come loss of jobs. Why? Because companies will try to use an AI to literally and figuratively try to do the job of multiple individuals. That being said, finding a job now is hard, because they always try to sit there and say, well, we don't want you guys using ChatGPT, but you use an AI to filter out resumes, which they do. So like even the story they told about this person that sat there and said that with these AIs, not only are they filtering out applications, they're actually taking interviews. So what I mean by that is you may actually be thinking you're speaking with a live person. Really, you're speaking with an AI that records your answers and interviews, and then again, God may or may not draw up a summary for an actual human to see it. And as a tech person, I'm going to be honest with you guys. As a tech person, I hate AI. I think that AI will eventually lead to loss of jobs. I think that AI and the IT world will diminish a lot of jobs completely, if not all the way gone. At the same time, the shift in employment, it's harder to find good jobs. Don't get me wrong. There's still junk jobs out there. There will always be junk jobs that nobody wants to do, especially now since Stephen Miller and his Nazi/ICE regime is trying to basically pull immigrants off the street. those same people that were doing those jobs are now open, will remain vacant because Americans don't want to do those jobs. But now that AI is being used, unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are qualified, may take longer to find a job. And again, that should be something that Taco should be addressing, but he won't because he is bought and paid for. But we're going to move on to our feel-good segment, guys, because usually how the Frack got here, we usually cover a lot of things, our doom and gloom, sometimes makes you your faith in humanity, but hey, it's Wednesday, tomorrow's Thursday. We want to leave you guys out in some good vibrations, and hopefully you'll do that. Of course, with Shaq being Shaq, always a man that is very generous with his money, decided to help his guy out with an engagement ring, buying one, helping him buy one. Dude, where were you when I needed you?
Let's get the booze. Got a good one for you. All right, basketball and broadcasting great Shaquille O'Neal. He loves to say that he is a people person, and this really proves it. He was in a jewelry store this week when he just overheard a young man discussing a layaway plan for an engagement ring. So you know what Shaq did? He slipped his own credit card to the salesperson and said to put it on his tab. Oh. Shaq was asked about the encounter during an NBA postgame show on TNT last night. Take a listen.
Went in there to get some loop earrings. And I seen the guy come in. He was just so shy. He was saying, "Hey, how much do I owe to pay off my ring?" It was just, and I was like, "My man, how much is the ring?" I'm into making people happy. So whenever I leave the house, I just try to do a good deed. Like I didn't mean for that to get out because I don't do it for that, but I'm just trying to make people smile. That's all.
Hey, Shaq's a blessing. Shaq said that at first the young man, he said he wasn't comfortable with that offer, but he told him, "Don't worry about it. I do it all the time."
And you know what? I can attest to it. Shaquille O'Neal has done other large things like that for people. Never.
And yeah, Shaq really has. I mean, like I said, a man with his wealth and his generosity, he's like, what am I gonna do with this? I was like, I'm taken care of, my family's taken care of. And honestly, I like that. I always imagined myself to where if I ever got to where I was of that status, I would pull a Batman. I would want to do things. I would want to do things for people, and I don't want publicity. I want no one to never find out about it. I want it to be freaking urban legend to where it's like, did Will really help those folks? Can anybody? I just want to sit there. I mean, not sit there brooding in the whole mask. Although, you know, if I ever get a Batman suit, you'd never know. But no, just do good deeds without having to get the acknowledgement of publication is always a great thing. And like I said, I can imagine dude not being gullible at first getting there. I mean, you imagine going to your wife, where'd you get this ring from? Shaquille O'Neal bought that ring. Boy, you lying. Already argument. Not even a marriage yet. But anyway, shout out to Shaq though, because again, great deeds should always be recognized, even though he didn't do it for the recognition. He just did it because he wants to make people smile. And I say that all the time here on this show. If you have the ability to make somebody smile or happy for a second or a lifetime, do so. The world could use more of that. Because we definitely need that this day and age. But that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. Thank you all for watching, for liking, for letting people know this is live. I certainly appreciate it. Some shameless plugging before we do get out of here. Shout out to Always Press Record TV. Why? Because How the Frack We Got Here shows on there. You can definitely check out the app APR TV on the Roku channel or on Amazon Fire TV, along with other shows that are available on APR TV. Definitely check them out. BlurStation.com. I have talked about this for nearly 2 years now. It is a place for Blurs, for our content, for our viewership. Most importantly, our dollars should be going to. Definitely check it out, BlurStation.com, guys. Again, $10 a month, $10.99 a month to stream Blur Station, and you can stream Blur Station on all smart devices. Definitely check it out. Also, runforoffice.org. I keep telling you, this is how Moms for Liberty did it, how the crazy ones did it. We definitely want to have more people in office. And if you feel the call to be to serve in office, whether it's local or national, definitely check this out. It could actually help you on the steps to where you can get on the ballot and then go from there to actually see if you get elected. Because as we said, guys, next year is the midterms. I can't stress enough that things need to change. Maybe the red hats are waking up. Some of them are. Maybe the reality of, the Armageddon that they voted for may finally be hitting them. Who knows? We'll find out. But for the rest of us, you can be active. You can get informed. But above all else, we have to do something. Be active, not silent. and also join the resistance. But how the frick we got here, guys? On all socials, all together one word. Check out our YouTube page, our Facebook page, Instagram, TikTok. Like, share, and subscribe, because much like NPR, guys, none of this can be done without you. I myself, Black_Spartan615 on the socials. You can like and follow me there. Talk to me sometimes. Just be cool about it. I don't want to have to block people and it gets weird. At the same time, guys, I know a lot is going on in the world right now. Please don't doom scroll. Go outside, enjoy the weather, even though right now it's sunny and summer is like summer's like being inside the kitchen with the heat turned on, the heat on the stove turned on. So again, if you're going to be out in the heat, please hydrate, please take care of yourselves, but enjoy life. Check on your friends, call or text them, let them know how you're doing. At the same time, protect your peace, find your inner strength. And like I said, the world will take care of itself, but doom scrolling is not going to help. Definitely protect your peace, drink your water, and mind your business. Outside of that, guys, last thing I'll say about that Frack out here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel, guys. We are simply trying to give you all the information you'd like to make up your own mind, but we do provide a lot of perspective that goes along with it. We do better as society once we're informed. We are literally encouraged to be progressive by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first Black woman to be in the socials. Electing our first Black woman to be in the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to be the Federal Board of Governors, and maybe one day electing our first Black woman to be the first Madam President. All great things. When we don't learn from history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up at our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians in Congress, but the same old game is being played? And most importantly, how the Frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and I promise we'll get through this. I messed up the Sigma. I am so sorry, guys. Peace.